Hey guys, and welcome to Krunker Map Making Tips and Tricks episode 6. In this episode we're going to be going over to how to make nice angled roofs in two methods. The first method will retain the nice texture going up, and the second one will rotate it but is much lower on object count. Now let's see how these look in a tester. So as we can see here, the original one maintains its texture going up and looks fine and dandy. In the second one, the texture is rotated, which doesn't look quite as nice, and in this third one here, it's the same as this, except here we're using a texture which it doesn't really matter as much if it's rotated, so that's actually alright. So how do we achieve this? For our first technique, what we're pretty much doing is taking a cube, taking it upwards, and then just reducing the size horizontally so that it fits under the facade of the side of the roof, which is just an angled piece. Now let's do this first one from start to finish. So what you're going to want to do is grab a cube and then reshape it to whatever size you want it to be. Let's just do a little one like this. Then you're going to want another cube. I'm just going to duplicate this one using Shift R. You want to take that cube and you want to make the sides of your roof, which are going to be the angled pieces. So I'm just going to take mine up, click 2 to change to rotate, rotate it along this axis, and then just get it to the shape I want. And then if there's a little piece of this sticking out, I'm going to click on this, go, and change my movement mode to world, which you can do in the bottom left of the editor. Change it to world, move it across, and that's great. We're going to want this to extend a little bit out from the building, so we're just going to do that with the transform tool. Now, to duplicate this to the other side, first we're just going to want to use Shift R to get another identical one of our roof side piece. And then we're going to want to go to Object Config, and then down to Rotation, and whatever we have here, we're just going to want to get rid of the negative. Now, if you've done this on the other side, and you have your roof piece on the right side or whatever, you're going to want to add a negative. Pretty much all you're doing is just flipping where that is. Once we've done that, we want to go into World Transform mode, down to the bottom left of the editor, and you want to slide that along till it lines up on that right side or left side. And now you've got a perfect duplicate of what you have here. So all you want to do now is just make these line up nicely. You can either do it like this if you don't want any clipping, but if you want to, you can do it like this and then add a little trim piece on top like I have over here. I'm going to add the trim piece, but in the meantime, we're going to do this next part. So let's switch this to the line texture so we can get a better idea of what we're doing. Let's duplicate this up so it maintains the horizontal, and then once you've got it up, you just want to change the side so it gets smaller. As you can see here, there's a little bit of a gap. What we can do to counteract this is make these a little bit fatter. Now you don't have to do this, but I think it looks nicer, and now we can just extend that out more and it just looks lovely. And then you just duplicate this up and do the same thing again. Sweet. Now that we've done all our duplicating, there's only a few things left to do. First of all, as you can see in this original texture, there are some variations in the darkness of these beams. So what we can do is do this manually. So just select whatever you want to change, go down to the style setting, and just change that darkness. So I'm going to change that one to that one to that, and then it just adds a bit more variation back in and looks nice. Now what we can do is just add the nice little piece of trim on top. So I like to just duplicate that up, pull it out, make it whatever shape you want, mess around with that a little bit, and that just looks lovely. So obviously this one is uncolored, but you can color it to make it look like whatever you want, and change around the textures and have a fine and dandy time. Now for our second technique. This technique is not nearly as object intensive, but it doesn't look quite as nice. What you're going to want to do is start out by grabbing a cube, reshaping it to whatever shape you want your house or building to be, and then duplicating that up to make the beginnings of your roof. For your roof, you have to make sure it is square in all aspects at first, especially the sides that are going to be visible. After I've made it square, I like to just make sure that it lines up with this nicely, and then what you're going to want to do is make this one unit on the side smaller, right? So that means that you don't have any of this weird glitchiness going on the side that's visible. Okay, after you've made it square, you're going to want to go to the rotation, and whatever angle you're rotating, you have to make it 0.79. So what I like to do is first just rotate it a bit, so down here we'll show up which one it is, and then change that to 0.79. That'll pretty much make a perfect 45-degree angle. So once you've done that, switch your transform mode to world instead of local, and move this into position. Of course, this won't perfectly line up first try, so you just have to keep reshaping, but when you reshape, you have to make sure it stays square. So down here, this is obviously not square, and now it is. So go back down into world mode, move it around, and just make those edges line up nicely. So this is probably good enough, and I'm going to leave it as that. After you've done this, all you have to do is make the little trim pieces, so just duplicate this, and then pull that along, and that makes a nice little trim. Make it out again, and then go out 3, so it should look like this. And that's a nice trim. And you can just duplicate this, and then take the angle, and get rid of that so that it flips it around. Pull it across, and there you go. That looks pretty nice. What you can do now, if you really want to, is add a little trim piece on top, and there you go. That's our second technique. This one, of course, uses way less objects, but doesn't look quite as nice as this original one, especially if you're using a texture such as lines, which actually has a very obvious angle to it when you do this. Still though, a lot less objects. Anyway, let's take a look at this in a map. So as you can see, we're here in Sub-Zero, and this is using the exact same technique we were just doing. It's taken the line texture, duplicated it up, and just made it smaller and smaller so it doesn't stick out the sides. Anyway guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.